The content discussed on this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be construed as financial or mortgage advice. Always consult with a licensed professional before making any decisions regarding mortgages or financial matters.
Welcome to the Canadian Mortgage Show. Here are mortgage professionals Alex Pang and Alex Shanks to cut through the BS and educate Canadians on all things mortgages and real estate.
All right, this is episode 3 of the Canadian Mortgage Show. I'm Alex Shanks, along with my co-host Alex Pang. We got a fun-filled episode here. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. Alex, I got to really tell you here, man, I messed up. I'm still using the shitty mic right now. I might need you to do an order on Amazon for me right now because I just can't do it. I can't find the time, man. And I know that you live in Vancouver. I'm on the island. I don't get that instant Amazon. Like, what's the timeline? Can you get something in like 5 minutes?
Oh, probably. Probably. As soon as I click, and then 5 minutes later, they're at my door. But I'm already ready for you, bud. Just say the word.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Get to your house.
Next episode, we got to have it or I'm going to get roasted.
Oh, we got to start a GoFundMe for Alex.
Maybe I can win some. I got some fantasy in football. We know hockey's coming right around the corner, and maybe I can bet you, and maybe I can win a Blue Yeti.
You know what? I'm excited for hockey season. We're in BC. I'm born and raised a Canucks fan. Quinn Hughes won the Norris Trophy, our first ever Norris Trophy winner. There's hope. I mean, we had a little bit of goaltending issues that we're worried about, but you're also in BC on Courtney, but you do not cheer for the Canucks. Explain yourself, Alex.
I cheer for the best team in the world, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Is there anything else like the center of the universe?
Oh man, your popularity went just way down in BC and shot way up for our viewers in Ontario.
It's a hard train to be on, man. It's the negative ride with them, and I mean, it reminds me a bit of like the Luongo era in Vancouver. That's what the train I feel like I'm on with the Leafs all the time.
Are they finally going to get over like Florida and Tampa? Like their regular season, their great regular season, but in the playoffs they just kind of crap the bucket.
I find they don't have grit. That's to me, it's great to have all the skill in the world, but you got to have some grit and passion. I will say I'm really excited about Austin Matthews being the captain. I think that's going to bring some hope in it, but hey, I say that every single year.
Yeah. Like obviously I'm not a Leafs fan, and when they lose, I cheer. But I can see like if they face another first round exit, I can see them dismantling the core. Like it's trading Tavares or somebody, like because what they have is not working, right? They need to have some grit and all that stuff. But we have a pretty good episode. What do we got going on?
Well, I know today we're going to be talking about a very hot topic. I mean, what was the increase this year alone? Like a million people? Is that what came into Canada alone last year?
Yeah, there was, I believe, 1.2 million that came in, but yet we've only built 200. Is it 240,000, something like that? So I mean, you do the math. You bring in 1.2 million people. You only have you built 200,000. Where is the extra people going to go? It's going to put stress in the housing system, right? And
the housing starts are down.
Yeah, exactly. And just as a country, we've all been clamoring, slow down immigration. And you've heard it here, folks. We are not xenophobic. We're not like saying anti-immigration. I come from an immigrant family. Alex,
I think we have a very good way to talk about it.
He just came, like his family came at a different time, right? Like we're all immigrants, right? So we're not trying to say no immigrants. We're just saying make it sustainable. It's like if you're going to bring in like slow it down so that if you're only building 200,000 a year, then bring in 200,000 a year, something like that, so that it doesn't put a strain on the system. So
I mean, we know it's a strain on homes. It's a strain on the medical system. Like it's not. There's so many things, and it's. I think even I've really spoken to immigrants that's come in the last year or two, and they are like, well, what am I doing here? I can't get a house. I can't even see a doctor. Why am I here? And that's where
they've been sold a bill of goods that Canada is the land of milk and honey. and man, are
Yeah.
they do they feel ripped off being here? Where you hear about um, a lot of them going to food banks and living in like rooming houses where there's 15 people living in a house. And it looks like the liberal government has finally listened to the people and all the critics, and um, they finally have announced that they're reducing the number of temporary foreign workers. So I'm just going to read out the announcement here. Now, places where unemployment is 6% or higher will not be able to hire low-wage temporary foreign workers, with a few limited exceptions, like food and fish processing, construction, and healthcare, where there is an acute shortage of staff. Now, employers will no longer be allowed to hire more than 10% of their total workforce through the temporary foreign worker program. And so there's been abuse, right? Like
We've
if you
seen
go
it
to
and we know it.
yeah, you go to the local Tim Hortons and it's all temporary foreign workers. They're all Indian, right? And not to hate on
The
Indian
scary
people, like
thing,
I said.
yeah,
Yeah.
the scary thing on that, Alex, is some of them are like so professionally trained. Like some of them are doctors, some of them are architects, and we make it so hard. It is easier for them to come in as a temporary foreign worker to work at Tim Hortons. Like what is
Hmm.
up with our system that way? Like, why are we not like, let's get them in to actually help our society?
Exactly. Now, at the same time, low-wage temporary foreign workers will also be limited to one-year contracts instead of the two that is right now. Now, according to the Bank of Canada's monetary report, newcomer unemployment rate is at 11.6%. That's just astounding. And
That's yeah, that
because of that, they're taking all the low-paying jobs. Now, it also affects the young people too. Young people age 15 to 24, unemployment is 13.5%, which is the highest in a decade. So I remember when I was young, if I were to apply to like 20, 30 jobs, I would get at least 5 to 10 calls. You go to any place in the mall, you're bound to get interviews and such. But, I have a teenage son, 17 years old. Him and his friends, they applied to like 50 places, not one phone call. There's a handful of his friends that got a job and they were considered lucky. And thankfully, my son did get a job because it was a family connection that my brother-in-law owns a business, hired him as an assistant. So if it wasn't for that, he would not.
yeah,
And all his
it's,
friends are having such a hard time finding a job because it's taken up by foreign workers, right?
well, and I
So
also have
I mean,
heard, like, we know that we talked COVID. There was saying that we needed employment. Employment was low. There's stories coming out now. It's not that no one didn't want the job. Is people didn't want to. They didn't want to pay them at a higher wage. That's where the
right?
real issue was. Is like, hey,
Yeah,
I'm not going to pay you $20 an hour. I'm waiting for the other person that I can pay $15 an hour. And
yeah,
that,
and then employers were abusing it because the temporary foreign worker program, they got grants or it was subsidized, right? So let's say you're paying somebody minimum wage 17.40 an hour, they got subsidized so that essentially out of pocket they're only paying $10 an hour. So as an employer, why would I hire a 16-year-old kid who is a local for 17.40 an hour when I can pay someone $10 an hour because the government makes up the difference? So it's not the
yeah, and
employer's
that's
fault. It's just that the government had this program that just got abused. And like the UN calls our temporary foreign working program a breeding ground for modern slavery.
That's how I honestly feel. That to me now, like when I grew up, I didn't feel like that. Where now it's like that's how I feel for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's just simply not enough housing for our new immigrants. And that definitely has put a strain on our housing system. We do
Yeah.
have, I looked up a stat, we do have the highest number of temporary foreign workers in the G7. And there was some video that was floating around social media lately. There was a job fair in Toronto. There was 100 people. 500 people were lined up around the block for those jobs, and they were like entry level jobs. That's just doesn't make sense. It's not right,
Yeah. But like again, like I
right?
said, I bet
So,
you if you
I
pulled
mean,
those people aside, how many people would be actually more skilled jobs? And that's like we need to be
mhm,
bringing in people that can build us homes. It's
mhm.
like that's what the government needs to be doing.
Yes, they need to bring in the shortage is construction workers,
Yeah.
doctors, nurses, and those sectors. Like,
Yeah.
thankfully they have listened to the people and are doing it, but it's almost like too little too late. And because we know it's an election year, and it's almost like they're grasping at straws now because, they're
Yeah.
down in the polls and such and all that stuff. But that's where it is. Interesting. There is a video that's been posted by a MP for the Conservatives in Oxford, Ontario. His name is Arpan Khanna. It's a 13-minute video. We're gonna put that link in the show notes, but have a look at it on the status of the immigration crisis in Canada. It's pretty accurate on where we are and how the government just let it go crazy. That's where it's at. What do you got next, Alex?
Let's talk about some like new development. Let's talk about like what's happening. How are we going to build these homes? I mean, what was the last stat? I think CMHC last year said we need to build 3 million homes in like 3 years. And like said, what we built 250,000. So we're a little shy. We're just a little bit shy there. But at the same time, there is homes being built and they're not selling in some places. Just gonna say, I'll share a stat. This is out in Ontario, so like BC is different. I don't have the stat for BC, but in July this year, there was only 266 pre-construction condos sold. That 10-year average is 2,000. Like that, I mean, is a substantial, but the cost of development has increased so much, and what they need to sell them for, people for one aren't going to buy them. The price of them are crazy.
There's a stat out there that the development fees for building anything, it works out to like 30 or 40%. I think it's 30%. That stat that's going out there for BC and Ontario. So just think about this. $1 million home in Ontario or BC, 300,000 of it is some level of government fee, permit, development cost, all that stuff. And that's where the cost is. The government is drunk on the revenue, so they just want a piece of the action. The only place that's really building a lot like crazy is Alberta. You know why? Because their
Alberta.
development fees
And
are
that's
low. That's why they're just building and building
exactly.
because the cost of entry is so low for developers. And you're seeing lately people from BC and Ontario, they're moving out there or they're investing out there because Alberta is calling. You see those ads on TV because they want investment. So we kind of need like all levels of government to agree. There is this fund called, the Housing Accelerator Fund. And Burnaby, they were able to receive 80 million from the government, and they turned around and say, haha, we're going to jack up development fees now for 50,000 a year. I'm like, well, how is that going to improve affordability? Like, the right hand is not talking to the left. The right hand is like the federal government be like, we need to improve housing affordability. Left hand is, municipality saying like, we're starving for tax dollars. So guess what? We're going to increase, you're contributing to the problem.
Talking about like the power of like the government for one stepping in saying like in BC we're meant to allow all places to be multi-zoned, but there's certain municipalities that aren't getting on board with that. That is because they don't want that, but it's like we gotta do something to fix this. And what is it? I think in Ontario the NIMBYs is what it's called a lot. Is like they want to segregate.
Yep.
Exactly. Yep. They don't want it, and it's like, I'm sorry, we can't have both. We can't have the cake and eat it too now. Like we do all have to work together now. And I mean, I don't want every single house to be able to have a multiplex on it. I don't think that's right. But like, why can't you have a suite in it? Like, let's bring that in. We talked about this on the last episode. How do we bring rent prices down?
We need to increase supply. Simple as that, right? And you have to create an environment that welcomes investment. Like, investment is good. It's not a bad thing. We're not evil people. Investors are good because it stimulates the economy. There's growth. There's, more competition, more supply, ultimately leading to lower prices.
What's your thoughts, on like the government talked about like bringing in like the War Times Act of like needing to build homes faster. What are your thoughts? And I've tried to throw this around even to talk about builders. Like, what if like the government gave money and said, hey, you build these homes, show me your budget, your quote, you can't make more than a 12% profit. What if something was brought in that way? And like, for one, maybe a new builder, new one, like that's like a fair, like, hey, you're making 12%. Like that's a fair number where we know some people are making way bigger than that. I think that could like accelerate like development for certain builders, get their feet wet, and then say maybe I'll go try something else after. What would you
Hmm.
say on that?
I'm all for it because it happened during the, I'd say probably the late 70s, 80s, where in Vancouver, we had a lot of these cookie cutter houses called the Vancouver Special, where it's essentially not, it didn't look that great, but it was a box essentially because it had maximized square footage on a piece of land. And for all of you who don't live in this part of the world in the West, look up Vancouver Special. It's probably one of the ugliest houses you ever seen, but it's functional and it maximizes square footage and space. And that's what we did. That's what Vancouver did a lot during the 70s and 80s during that time when I was young and growing up. But I think what would really spur on development is municipalities and governments lower development fees. It's like take the Costco
I think
approach
so.
rather than the
Yeah, and I
whole run
mean,
through. You know what I'm saying? Like instead
yeah,
of, oh, I want to make 50,000 a unit and there's only like 50 units that get built or 100 units get built. Well, let's lower that. Let's give it a math example. Let's lower that to 25,000 a unit. Well, now
yeah, but you get
500
more
units get
units.
built. Yeah, because you want to
Yeah,
push up more volume. It's like
yeah,
taking less of a cut on each
yeah.
suite or unit that gets built, so that more volume. It's the Costco Walmart effect. So
Which
if
I see good
governments
and
really
bad on
want to
that.
address it, that'll make a difference.
The one thing I've seen though is like we see these like micro suites, like some of these
Mm,
the developers trying to fit so much stuff into a place. I mean, people are living in 300 square feet, like
yeah.
that. And again, they've done that because they're only able to develop on this small parcel of land. If they go any
Hmm.
bigger, they'd have to pay millions more, and that's where it's that way.
And you know what? Guess what, folks? People don't want to raise their family in condos, right? All these high rises and developments, like Ron Butler puts it, they're dog crates in the sky. Like most of us who get into condos because it's a lower price point and we get in
Yeah,
for a short time being until, you know, we're able to build equity, our careers, we make more money or whatever. And then we move on up to a townhouse or house or whatever. Now, what we need more building of is the right supply. And we need the missing middle. And if I'm going to plug another pod, listen to the Looney Hour. They're great guys, Steve Saretsky and those guys. They do a great pod on analysis on that. But yeah, the missing middle is like what BC is going to do with these like four plexes or six plexes, which you have bigger suites like a 2 bedroom or a 3 bedroom that you can raise a family in. When we know the single detached home is gonna
it's
go
too
away
far
like the
away.
dodo bird eventually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's gonna create different markets where single detached will go up in price because it's more rare.
Yeah.
But in
I
terms of the
mean,
housing,
that's
yeah,
look at Hong Kong and New York and stuff.
yeah, yeah. What would really spur it on is like, sorry to beat a dead horse, but yeah, if the government lowers development fees, makes it attractive. Of course, at the same time, interest rates will have to come down to make the numbers work, pencil. Like the math needs to math. I heard one someone said that develop means like the conditions are so crazy that even if you gave the land for free and built and all that stuff, the numbers still don't work in this current environment. And that's what's
Yeah.
keeping our building suppressed right now, right? You heard about that stat,
Oh
right?
yeah, and I mean we see it like for one assignments, people that bought and speculated, hoping to buy a place and sell it for more money. That's not happening. Places are actually coming in undervalue. Like, what are you seeing
Mm-hmm.
that way in Vancouver?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot. Like, you can comment more on Ontario, but like because of interest rates, shooting up to the moon and real estate market really, kind of pulling back, people who bought at the peak during COVID and bought pre-sales, they're coming to completion soon. And places are not praising for the value they bought it at. So for instance, they bought it at $1,100 a square foot, but it's a comparative resale is $900 a square foot.
Yeah,
Well, the bank will only lend based
yeah.
on the
Tell
appraised
me what
value.
tell break that down for me. Tell me if like
Yeah,
I don't know how mortgages work. I don't know how the
yeah,
bank's going to give me money. Tell me how.
yeah,
Try we obviously we don't we could show you guys. Maybe we'll have to do that another day. But try and make it
yeah,
so someone can really understand what happens.
yeah. Okay, let's give for example. Let's say someone bought a place for $1 million, right? Vancouver, downtown Vancouver condo, $1 million. They put 20% down, 200,000. That was probably in 2020, 2021. Today, that same condo is worth 850. The bank appraises it at 850. Now, the the bank will only lend on 850, that value that it appraises for. So 80%, for instance,
Of the
of
850.
850. Yeah.
Yeah.
But um so the buyer will have to come up for that difference of that 150,000 shortfall plus a little bit more for the difference in mortgage amount. Not everyone has that, right? You can go to bank of mom and dad, but you don't
To
have that. We
to
can't even
give
find a lender or
to
private
give
lender that will make up the difference,
yeah
right?
to give people an idea that that difference is $120,000 extra is what they have to
Yeah,
come up with.
yeah.
And yeah, that's if you were first time home buyer, people don't have that. Now,
So
there's
and what?
ways to
Yeah,
squeak it in. If you're under a
yeah.
million, there is the insured and uninsured
Hmm.
mortgages. We'll talk about that thing on another episode. But it's scary, and there's certain ways that people, when you're looking at pre-construction, you do got to check out some other things.
Like because these appraisal coming up short, what a lot of people are doing is trying to sell the assignment. Like let's just unload it. But the problem is in this environment, no one's buying an assignment because why am I buying something for $1,100 a square foot when the value is only 900 a square foot? I can just buy
Yeah,
something here for 900 a square foot, right? So
and I
people
think
can't
some
even give
developers
it
aren't even
away.
let it, and the developers aren't even letting
Yeah,
them. They're like, no, you
yeah,
can't even
exactly.
assign this.
So what some people are considering doing is just walking away from the deposit. I'd rather just walk away from that 200,000. That's it. But it doesn't just end there, right? That's there's more liability to it. So if that developer sells that same, let's say 1 million property for 850, they can sue you for that 150 difference. So not only
Yeah.
did you lose your 200,000 deposit, they can go after you for that 150. So
Yeah, and they have money, they have lawyers and stuff. And if I'm
yes,
buying, I can't fight that. It's
exactly. And they will win every time.
yeah,
So the sky is going to fall for a lot of people, especially some developments.
yeah.
So unfortunately, that's
Give a tip for people that are looking at pre-construction right now. Like there's good projects out there. There's ways to protect yourself. You want to talk with someone, a professional, either your bank, your mortgage broker. You want to make sure that someone's there to help guide you. There's ways to protect you. You can actually get in with lenders that will actually approve you today on the value that you buy it for, even if it
Mhm.
actually was to drop in value. And that, like,
Yeah.
there could have been a lot of people protected.
Yeah. So like talk to us. A lot of the developments have their own in-house bank that will do a kind of an approval today, and that's guaranteed for until like when the project's done, 2 to 5 years from now. The caveat is when you do that kind of a long rate hold or whatever, you are paying a higher interest rate than it is today. So take that with a grain of salt.
Great thing though is like you're protecting yourself, and when it comes to completion, hopefully your mortgage broker, your bank can get you something better. But at least if
Yeah,
what we've had happen now, you're protected. And
yeah.
that's what I always tell people. You got to protect your own asset.
I've even had cases too where, even cases where people lose their jobs in between, right before closing. I've had to put people into private loans
Yeah,
it's almost like a band-aid, just to tie you
yeah,
over for a year so you can find another job, a
yeah,
permanent full-time job, and then we'll refinance and put you back over to the cheaper
yeah.
bank lending. There are options. It's not like it is a tough situation, but yeah, talk to a professional about that.
I'm going to tell you one thing that I'm noticing, and I want to get your thoughts on it, see what you're seeing out there. Is on my area, I'm not seeing developers build places to sell. I'm seeing developers to build to rent. And I call it kind of a subscription based model of we've seen everything that used to be able to buy, used to be able to pay a one time thing. Everything is now, it is on a monthly revenue because companies have realized, well, I can get a lot longer from someone And with these, like when you look at commercial mortgages, I dive into it quite heavily, is you can get 50-year amortizations. The average that me and you as a residential, we're 30 or 25, which pushes it out so your cash flow is better. You get better interest rates. You also can put less money down. It's the same as a first-time homebuyer. They can put 5% down. You do have to have the right stuff in place, but I'm starting to see that more. What are your thoughts there?
I am seeing slowly starting to see more developers do purpose-built rentals, and I'm seeing some developers too. The deeper pocket ones, like the bigger ones, like Ani, Lettingham, McAllister, Boza, and all that stuff.
Yep.
If the numbers don't work, they just sit on it and don't develop. So,
And
I mean,
what about
it's
the
a tough
ones that
time right
people
now, and
developments that are going bankrupt?
there's a few, like there's one in Vancouver, Oak Ridge, that's like they were selling it for $2,000 a square foot. Even during the height of the market, I'm like, wow,
Insane.
that's insane. I'm like, when the market was like max 1,000 a square foot, like, geez, you were only catering to foreign buyers who are looking to park their money.
Yeah.
And that the musical chair stopped on that one in a hurry.
Well, I think we've gone over a lot of other stuff. I'm excited. This is our third episode. I find that we're just getting better and better. Please, like, if you guys ever want to put comments, let us know you want to hear something different. Any tidbits, any information that you think we could do better. We're all ears. We want to bring this to you guys. We want to make sure the listeners that you guys get exactly what you want from this.
I think this wraps it up. From my co-host Alex Shanks, I'm Alex Pang. Thanks for listening to episode 3 of the podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.
Now, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, make sure to follow us. Please give us a 5-star rating. You can even send us an email because we want to know what you guys want to hear about. That's what we're here for. Reach out anytime.